show you on the Millennium is how to time the looper and how to set the needle guard, and they have to be done in conjunction with each other. The most important thing is the needle guard, and the needle guard is this piece right here, and it's held with two screws, and these are the two screws that they're held with. And the way you would set the needle guard is you would bring your needle to its lowest point, then come up approximately 3/8 of an inch. And when you come up about 3/8 of an inch, this needle guard should be physically touching the needle like it is right now. And I cannot move that needle in at all because the guard is touching it, supporting it. It's like an old man with a cane. If he doesn't have that support, he's not going to walk properly. And if your needle guard is not set right, you're not going to sew properly, no matter what you do with the looper. So first thing is setting your guard. And a guard is an item that you should always have a spare part because they break or they crack sometimes because they are in constant contact with the needle when the needle is approximately 3/8 of an inch up from its lowest point. Okay, one more time. You bring your needle down to its lowest point. You can see the space now between the needle and the guard. You come up about 3/8 of an inch, and that guard had better be touching the needle. And it's touching the needle before the point of the looper, which is this right here. This is your looper point. Before the point of the looper comes above the eye of the needle. Okay, back up with a second. This is your looper. This is the point of your looper. And the point of the looper should come just barely above the eye of the needle.
Point to it with a screwdriver? The looper?
The looper is this. This is the looper without anything in the way. And the point of this looper should be just barely above the eye of the needle. Okay? Now, that's how that people will ask, well, what's the needle bar height? The needle bar height is set when we set it at the factory. It's not something you should ever move. But if somebody does move it, you will reset it based on the point of the looper coming just barely above the eye of the needle as the needle is going up. As a needle bar is going up, the point of the looper should come just barely above the eye of the needle, and that sets the height of your needle or needle bar. The guard we already know. Now let's do the timing of the looper. Okay, the looper is held in this steel block, which I'm pointing to with the screwdriver. If I wanted to change the timing of my looper, I would have to go get a wrench and loosen this screw. And that screw holds the block which holds the looper. The looper timing never moves, ever, unless somebody moves or loosens the screw. So for somebody to say I had to retime the looper, that's baloney. Doesn't change unless, because at the factory we Loctite this. Very, very hard. So what happens is why do I have to change my looper? Well, you might have to change your looper because a needle strikes it and perhaps bends it or changes the angle, or the point of the needle gets struck. The point of the looper gets struck by a needle. That forces you to change your looper. But it's the looper timing from the factory is right on the money. Okay, now the guard, as I mentioned previously, the needle guard, they bend and they break. You should always have a spare on hand. You should always have a spare looper on hand. Now, how do I know the correct timing of the looper to the needle? Well, as I mentioned previously, that when the looper, the point of the looper, that there starts to come, it should just be above the eye of the needle. But we give you a gauge. And if you want to know where the looper should be set, we put this gauge on the needle and we go down, and I should have removed the feeder, and it's a 5/32 in space. So if I bring my looper to its furthest point back. You remove this feeder, which is only held with one screw, and you slide this down. When you slide the looper gauge down, you'll see that the point of the looper touches this edge of the gauge. That gives you the 5/32 of an inch spacing. Here's your needle. We'll use this as a needle. And you come down your needle, and the point of your looper should be 5/32 of an inch away. That's providing somebody's disturbed the looper timing. It's just that simple. In order to go to do what I've shown you, you have to remove these two 3mm Allen screws, and the whole binder and the base assembly comes off. You remove the needle plate, which is held with 3 screws. That comes off. That allows you to see everything and do everything. One thing would make it easier on you would be to take the screw out that holds the feed dog if you want to check the space between your looper and your needle to be 5/32. We provide a looper gauge with each machine. If you've lost yours, you can buy it. We have them in-house. That's basically the story.